want to be a chiropractor since middle school. Like, that's what I wanted to do. She didn't have a good experience being a chiropractor, but that scared the shit out of me, the stock stuff. When I met that dude, showed me his whole portfolio, and he's like, what should I buy? 4 months later, and he made like 800 grand. I would literally just get shoes from people for less. I'd buy like bulk or a really expensive pair of shoes at a discount, and then I'd post it on my Snapchat, and then I would sell them to people on my Snapchat.
I would never date someone that didn't finish college. And I was there when he dropped out, and I remember being like, I have this belief, but like, this person is not that.
I see how people can get trapped in comfort and settle. And I saw everyone that I worked with settle, and that terrified me because I'm like, this is not the life that I want to live.
Welcome back to the Seeking Leverage podcast. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be all about a lot of the things that we tried before, high ticket sales, and the experiences there and the stories there and what worked, what didn't work. And hopefully we give you guys some feedback or some like good value. And there's obviously like a lot of things that we did and we were like together during that time. There's also things that I was trying before and there were things that you were trying before. And I think that when we just came together, we were like two forces moving twice as fast. So it was a lot faster that we moved. But I think there's still things that you went through and I went through that we just never really spoke about because we were still early in our relationship. So you want to kick us off?
Yeah, totally. It's funny because I was getting dinner last night with Abraham and Renzo and Mino, and they were talking about their clients and like the different things that, you know, they're doing and how some people basically, we came to the conclusion that a lot of people will have like a certain amount of days where they'll try something, and then if it doesn't work, they give up, but they don't realize that like there's a certain amount of like stages or like steps to like whatever you do. Yeah. So like some people are like, I'm going to give this 60 days, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to give up, but they might be on step 4 out of 7, and that's why they're not seeing like results. And I thought back to everything I tried, which was like Amazon FBA. I started 3 different drop shipping stores. I tried doing like drop servicing where I would like sell businesses like websites and then find someone on Fiverr to like do it. Obviously I did high ticket sales and I had success with that. But I flipped shoes, I traded stocks, I traded Forex, I traded crypto. Like I did so much shit.
You did. Let's begin with like getting all the context.
Yeah.
What was, I know that the first thing it sounds like that you ever sold was computers in high school. Is that the first thing you ever sold that was like a physical product?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I sold.
Okay, well, so we were starting back when Garrett was in high school and you started selling computers. What's the story there? Like, how did you even have that idea that like you wanted to try and sell something? Because a lot of people just never have that idea.
Yeah, it was pretty random, honestly. I was working at like a sandwich / ice cream shop that actually failed and went out of business. But
Don't laugh.
Hey, I mean,
Are you just laughing because it's ironic?
I think it's ironic that they failed. But anyway, I was working at a sandwich and ice cream shop, and the owner came in, and they also were on the school board for like that like really small school. And they're like, yeah, we just got this grant. They were like talking with other people on the school board while they're eating. And they're like, we just got this grant to where every year we get new MacBooks. So like we have all these MacBooks that we literally got last year that have barely been used by students. Cause like how much do they really use these? And like we're getting brand new ones. So we're just going to sell them to the public for like $300 each. And the Chromebooks are going to be like $40 each. Because like we don't know what else to do with them. We just need to get them like off our hands. And I was overhearing the conversation, and I was like, oh, like I might need a new computer for school. Like, could I get one? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I remember watching like Gary Vee videos, and he's like, just flip stuff. Like he'd do these garage sale videos where he'd like go to a garage sale and sell it. Mm-hmm. I was like, how many can I buy? And they're like, why do you need multiple? I'm like, can I buy like 3? And they're like, I mean, we got to get rid of them anyway. Like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I have like not that much money, but there's no way I can't sell these for more than $300 because all the kids that are older than me that are going to be going off to college, they're going to need computers. So what if I just sold these? So I ended up buying 3. And I was living at home. So I'm like, I don't need the money in my bank account anyway. Like, who cares? And I literally sold basically each of them for like, I forgot what it was, but like $600, $700 or something like that each. So I made like $300 or $400 on every one, and I made like $1,200. And at the time I was making like $8 an hour and not working that many hours at that place.
At the ice cream shop?
Yeah, and it was like a summer job. So I was like 15 or something, 16 maybe. And I would make like maybe 1,500 that whole summer because I wasn't getting paid shit. And I just remember like within the span of a week buying 3 computers and selling them for more, and then making basically what I would have made that summer, and not doing that much. Like I got a computer from someone and then I gave it to someone else. And that I feel like I was so young and I didn't really think of this at the time, but looking back on it, that was the light bulb moment where I like detached time from money. And I always thought in hourly wages. I'm like, man, I'm making 8 an hour. I wonder if I could get to 15 an hour. And that's where like the time separated from money. And I was like, whoa, that was cool.
Yeah, like you realized that you don't have to live a life where your pay is based on like an hour, but versus like like a solution, like something where it's like I can charge for this and I just make a profit because that's the game. So you were selling computers. That was like your first like different perspective at making money, where it wasn't just what you'd been taught, which was like an hourly job.
Yeah.
And that was when you were like a freshman, sophomore in high school. When was the next instance that you were like, okay, that first thing worked, like let me see if this works again? Because I think first time it could be an accident, second time you try something and it works, you're like, an established belief has now been formed.
Yeah, totally. Because like my dad runs his own construction business, and even he would bill clients like on his hourly wage for working. So like that was the only way my brain thought. And then my friend started this like he was in this program for the high school. It was called like the CEO program or something like that, where like at 7 a.m. he would have a class from like 7 to 8 a.m. before school would start. And it was about like business owners in the area. And their main project for the semester was to start his own business. Like he had to like sell Krispy Kreme donuts as like a fundraiser to save up 500 to like start a business, which is such a cool class. I wish I did that. And his business was like a supplement business. And I was so obsessive with lifting at the time that I was always at the gym. I was also on the football team, so I'd lift with the football team. And then after that, I would go lift with my friends, or I'd go to the gym. And he was like, hey, like, you know a lot of people that lift, like, you should sell supplements. Like, you'll get 30% commission on my profit on these. So I was selling, like, $35 pre-workouts where he would make, like, $12 on them, and then I would make, like, $3.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So that was your first, like, you sell this thing and you're going to get a percentage of that sale experience.
Yeah.
Even though it was a smaller product, I mean, it's still like same framework.
Yeah, which was interesting because I remember going to the gym and I was like, when I was there, I was literally like headphones on, not talking to people prior. I'm like, I'm just locked in. I'd take my pre-workout and I was like so focused. I'm like, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just lifting. And then every time I walked in the gym, I'm like, this is like an opportunity. Like every time I come in here, everyone is on pre-workout. They're taking BCAAs. Like they're probably on protein. Like they're probably on creatine. Maybe some of them are like doing SARMs or different things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like they're always taking them. They're always running out. Like I just have to build connections with these people because whenever they run out, like I could be the person. So I just started, I had to change my mind frame to like, I need to be social with people now. And I just started handing out samples. I was like, hey dude, like, you know, like you look like you've been in here a lot. Like what pre-workout are you taking? And they're like, oh, this one, but I don't like it because it makes me too jittery. And I'm like, oh, it's too high in beta-alanine. Like, here's a sample. Like, try this one. And then, because he gave me, like, hundreds of samples. He's like, get rid of these, nice. Which was really good for me. So I just built some relationships, and I didn't make crazy money, but it kind of taught me, like, just relationship building. So I'd made a couple $100, you know, here and there selling supplements. Yeah. But I did realize really quick, like, I ain't going to make any money selling pre-workouts where I make $3. So that's where I basically started selling more like SARMs, or I would put together like a whole, like almost like kit for people where it was like, you need a pre-workout, BCA, protein, SARMs, PCT, E-blocker, and I'd put it all together, and then it would end up being like $500, and then I would make like, you know, like more than $3. Yeah. So it kind of taught me like, I need to sell more expensive things if I'm going to make anything from this, because Ryan wouldn't pay me on the pre-workout. I'm like, I kind of don't care anyway. Like that doesn't even cover like a McDonald's meal. So, but yeah, that was the kind of the next thing that I did.
Yeah. So it sounds like you realize like it sounds like it was a learning opportunity, as you like to say, where it's like you didn't actually make a whole bunch of money, but like the first thing you were like, well, let me just like see if I can flip this thing. The second thing, it was like, well, this is like something that I can do consistently, where I can consistently make a profit because I'm working with this person. And then you just realize that for you to be able to make more money, you needed to sell more expensive things. So you start to think out of the box of like, how can I make what I'm doing now more expensive? So it's like upselling, like instead of just needing the pre-workout, you're going to need this, and this to get to your end goal. And that's like what you need. And that's what it is. And that's how you got a bigger income. So really cool. Was that like still in high school? Like right before you left? Like what would that look like?
That was me being in high school. And like, I still didn't like, my family would definitely classify me as like lazy in high school. Like anytime it was like I would also mow lawns on the summers and stuff, and pick up sticks and like weed eat and do like landscaping type stuff. And I always hated it. I was like, I feel like this is such a dumb way to make money because it's so hard. You like sweat your ass off and I'm making like $10 an hour. Like, I don't think this is like, there were like 3 rich people in my town. And anytime I was working like those like landscaping jobs, I was like, they're not doing this. Like they hire people to do this for them. So I'm like, I would always go back to my light bulb moment with the computers and I'm like, they don't have their time attached to money. Like, I think that's why they can hire people to do this stuff for them. But yeah, with the supplements, I just liked lifting anyway. And I was like, I spend like 3-4 hours a day in the gym. Like, may as well make something doing it just so I can like pay for random stuff like going out to eat with my friends and like my gas. Yeah. So I wasn't trying to make a lot of money. It was just like, I enjoy this, and if I can make money, cool.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's a good story. So it was freshman year, sophomore year, you tried the computers, selling them. And then later on, probably like a year later, 2 years later, you went into like selling the workout stuff. And then you went to college, right? Is that like where the next journey in your life continues? Is like that next level when you went to college? Or was there anything that happened prior to going to college?
Yeah, I think that was it. Because I pretty much just, I wasn't too entrepreneurial, and I just went into a party phase until I pretty much went to college. And I feel like once I was in college, I was like, oh, I'm on my own now. Like, I have to like make money. Yeah. So I think that's when it kind of restarted again.
Yeah. It restarted because you went to college, you wanted to be a chiropractor, and you basically like realized, because you weren't doing them simultaneously, right? Like when you were fully set, like I want to be a chiropractor, were you doing other things on the side to try and make money and it wasn't working? Or was it like all of everything like entrepreneurial for you was paused until you had that conversation with your professor that she basically told you?
That's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share that story? Like, so it sounds like you paused and then you had a conversation with your professor that was like a line in the sand moment of like, I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. What was that moment?
Yeah, so I got over a year's worth of credits in high school of all the AP classes and stuff so I could start as a sophomore in college, because I was like, I want to be a chiropractor since middle school. Like, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was dead set on. And I was like, I'm in college. In college, you're an adult. You, like, progress in life. Not what happened at all. I feel like I just partied a lot. But, yeah, I was pretty focused on that. I had good grades. And one time I was in anatomy and physiology too.
What grade?
I don't know. It was either my last semester of freshman year or first semester of sophomore year.
Okay.
I want to say probably first semester of sophomore year if I had to guess. But in that class, we were learning about the spinal cord, which is like chiropractor or back. Like, that's what we were learning about. And I was like actually really focused in class because I'm like, this is finally applicable. Because in college, I was like learning about the history of India and like communication. And I'm like,
I took a badminton class.
Yeah, like I took a volleyball class. I'm like, I want to crack backs. Like, what am I doing here? But anyway, in that class, learning about the spinal cord, and the teacher just lightly mentioned, she's like, oh, I know this stuff like the back of my hand when I was in chiropractic school. And, I was a chiropractor for a little bit. So like, I don't even have to prepare for these types of lessons. And I was like, oh my God, like she was a chiropractor? Like, cause part of me was just like, college seems so useless. Cause I'm not taking steps to actually be a chiropractor. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like I was wrong. Like,
When you heard what?
when she said she was a chiropractor, I'm like, I'm going to make a real connection to someone who used to be a chiropractor and knows a lot about this stuff and has experience. Like after class, I'm going to make sure I go down and talk to her. And her name was Betsy. Love Betsy. She changed my life in probably not the way that she'd hoped to, but she did. So after class, it was like a whole auditorium with like 300 people. I was sitting in the back like I usually did. And I walked all the way down and she was like, hey, like, do you have any questions about anything about the lesson? I was like, no, you just mentioned you used to be a chiropractor. And like, ever since middle school, like I've wanted to be a chiropractor. So I was really excited for this chapter. Like, what was your experience like being a chiropractor? And she like shelled up a little bit because I think she didn't want to like shatter my dreams because she didn't have a good experience being a chiropractor. But she was like, well, you know, I took a little bit of a different path. Like I wanted to start my own practice. So like I got the building and I started, you know, renting that out. And I was like, okay, I graduated chiropractic school. I know everything about physically being a chiropractor and like doing the work. But I kind of didn't know hindsight, like marketing and sales. Like I didn't really know how to get people to like come into my business. And then when they did, like I knew how to be a good chiropractor, like by the books, but I had to like get the people to like pay for my services. And like I wasn't good at getting the people to come in or getting the people who came in to pay. So I honestly had student loans and then I had rent to pay. And I just realized that I didn't know how to do that side of things. So I just got out of my lease and like I sold that place. And now I've been teaching ever since. And it terrified me because I was obviously naive. I was like 18, 19. I was like on Google, like it says that the average chiropractor makes like 150,000 a year or 200,000 a year. So I just thought like you get your bachelor's, you get your doctorate of chiropractic, and then you make what Google says. I didn't know there's like a you have to know business part. And that scared the shit out of me because I wanted to start my own business because my whole dad's side of the family, they all pretty much have their own businesses, like for like blue collar stuff. So I just freaked out. And
You looked at her like,
yeah, I was like, she's like, but you probably don't want to like start your own practice, right? And I was like, that's specifically what I want to do. And I was like, thank you for this conversation. And I went home and I literally went to YouTube and I was like, how to make money. Because I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, because I was paying for my own college. I'm like, this is like, I had a lot of scholarships and stuff, but it was like 5 or 10K a year. It was like so much money to me. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get all these student loans. It's going to be like 150K, 200K in debt by the time I finish chiropractic school and this, like, just to not make money. Like, that's terrifying. Like, I think I need to figure out the business stuff. Because if I don't know the business stuff, then like it doesn't matter how good I am as a chiropractor. And I think that's when my like entrepreneurial switch like kind of flipped back on.
yeah. Well, that's a great story. And I feel like, I do feel like looking back at that story, like you were kind of headed in like this direction. And then it was like a hard stop where it was like, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. Let's pivot. And I feel like that is giving God guiding you and like putting Betsy in like that conversation at that moment so that you could shift, because if it wasn't for that conversation and like you walking up to her, then you might have went down a path that just really wasn't where you were meant to be at all. It was just where you thought you wanted to go in that moment during that time. Yeah. So you go home, you search up how to make money online. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you did prior to meeting me, and then we can go into like some of the things that led you here.
Yeah. So if you guys have spent any time on YouTube watching how to make money online videos, like they go for the most, like there's so many YouTubers that like basically just talk about all these different business models and all these different things. And the things that they were talking about were like trading stocks and drop shipping. So that's what I did. I traded stocks and I did drop shipping. My first ever store was it was called oilmaster.net because I didn't want to pay for .com. It was like $2 more. And basically you're supposed to like, it does the oil change for you. So you like put a tube in and it takes all the oil out and then you pour oil into this like machine thing and then it puts the oil back into it. And that was my product. because this one dude I randomly connected with on YouTube said that he used that product and he made like $1 million with it. I don't believe him now because I think he charged me like $300 or something like that to like help build the website for me. Yeah, I started running Facebook ads. On the second day, my Facebook ad account got banned, and it was banned for like 4 years until like, honestly, like a couple months ago, which is so funny from that exact thing. So I tried that. Obviously didn't make any money. Yeah, I did that. And then I was like, okay, e-commerce is hard. Like, I can't run ads now. I thought that was the only way you could get customers with e-commerce. So I started trading stocks, and I just joined a bunch of like Snapchat groups and Discord groups of different people that trade stocks that are around my age. And I spent way too much time focused on stocks, like years, like on trading stocks in like crypto and Forex and options and all types of stuff. So
I feel like during that time, like during like 2018, 2019, stocks were like a really big deal to like people in college and people like trying to break into like how to make money online. You know, future pacing into now or even a year ago, like people look at that and they're like, dude, if you really are getting into that right now and you have absolutely no type of experience or actual money to do it with, like you're getting played, bro. You're getting played.
Yeah.
But you did that for a while, and that's when we met. And I think like even though that didn't
Yeah.
obviously work for you, like that was, I think when I met you, like that was what you were doing. And you were in a lot of really good groups that were inspirational and were entrepreneurial and were like really ambitious. And I feel like you were meant to like at least learn, you know, lessons from the people that you started to hang around. What was that like?
yeah, I think, yeah, I made some money, lost some money, whatever with the stock stuff. But what it did give me was like, I got insanely knowledgeable about that topic. And when I talked to people who had a little bit of money, I had some value to bring to them.
Yes.
So there was a gym owner in the town that Michelle and I lived in back then. And they were like, man, you know a lot about certain stocks and the stock market and interest rates and like certain things that happen. And they had like a lot of money invested. Like I remember, you know, one of them in particular showed me a portfolio of like $2 million in there. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know.
And that would not have happened if it wasn't for you at least getting into something to figure out how can I provide value to other people, because it was a conversation starter. Like the whole reason that like you started the conversation with that guy was because you were sitting at his business doing the thing and he was like, what are you doing? And you guys were able to connect. You were able to add value to him.
Totally. Yeah. And the craziest thing was when I met that dude, he showed me his whole portfolio and he's like, what should I buy? And at the time, like I had like $1,000, $2,000 maybe to my name. So I would buy like penny stocks because penny stocks can go up the highest. Like a Google is like a $2 trillion company. Like they're not going to go to 200 trillion where you can 100x your money. So I'd find these companies that are tiny that are like 20 cents that can like go up a lot. And there's this one company called MindMed. It was like a medicinal like shrooms company basically, based out of Canada. And basically that company was like a really small penny stock because they couldn't get money from hedge funds because shrooms are like not legal. So they couldn't put money in them until they were like legalized. So they got like decriminalized in like a couple states, and it was like a Canadian company. And then basically because it got decriminalized and the company started moving to the United States, like these big hedge funds were allowed to put money into them. And I knew that. And then he was like, what should I buy? And I was like, you should buy MindMed. And I explained all the reasons. And he's like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, I'll buy some. And then like 4 months later, he called me. He's like, you were the one that told me to buy MindMed, right? And I was like, yeah. Like, why? I was like, oh no. I'm like, I lost this guy money. I feel so bad. And he's like, yeah, so I threw like 80 grand in there when you told me about it. And I was like, oh my God, like, why did you do that? And he's like, yeah. You could look back at stock charts. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it went from like 30 cents to like $3, and he made like 800 grand.
Wow.
And he was like, thank you so much, Garrett. Like, he's like, anytime you come into my restaurant, you can get all the free food you want. And I was like,
you better get all the free food you want.
I was like,
you changed this man's life.
I'm glad I could get a free euro, but like, can you toss me some money back? Like, I made you $800,000. Like,
What did you make on that stock?
I sold it after like a week. I made like $50 and I'm like, let's go. Like, I'm done for the day. Cause yeah, like I would like day trade stuff cause I needed the money back immediately because I had rent to pay. He was like 80 grand, whatever. I forgot about it. And a couple months later, I thought there was like way more money in this specific stock in my portfolio. And I thought it was weird. So I looked and then there's a lot of money there. So I took a small L, but I got free euros for life now.
And I think the lesson in that, and then we can close this chapter, move on to the next, but it feels like the lesson in that was like stocks can work and you were knowledgeable in it. You'd done it for years. The biggest disconnect for you is that you and this other guy that made 800K doing stocks and you knew the same information, you provided him with that information, is that he already had the money.
Yeah.
You were trying to make more money from a smaller nest egg. And so it was like more pressure on you, more like taking like risky actions on your end, and then like needing it right away because it's like it was like cycling through each other, which I feel like is a disconnect when you're trying to make more money. If it's like if it keeps cycling itself out, so it would be something really great to go back to. But in that moment, it just didn't serve you the best because you were trying to like learn how to start stacking money consistently and not recycling money consistently.
I think the biggest lesson there was, you know, when you have $1,000 or less or $2,000 or less to your name, like don't try to make money using your own money if you don't have any money. Like like if you have more time than you have money, then spend your time making money. Don't try to make passive income.
You were trying to make passive income when you needed to make active income.
That's exactly what it was. And like hindsight, like he made so much money because he had active income going on. He had employees, he had stuff like he had real estate. Like he was actively working because he had businesses. And then on the side, he was investing and earning passive income because he already had the money to be able to do that. I didn't. So that's why that didn't work. Hindsight now, like, yeah, I could absolutely, you know, make money like I was telling him to back then. But I think that was a big learning lesson there. It's just like I should have focused on making active income because I had all the time in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good lesson. This is during the time that I had met you. You had done that for a little bit prior to me, a little bit after me. And what were some of the other things that you started to do once we got together?
Yeah. There was a lot. And the funny thing is like I did a lot of these things like technically, but really I watched YouTube videos on them and like half tried a lot of them, but I didn't really put in like extremely strong effort. So like I tried, I remember. You
were getting shiny object syndrome.
Totally shiny object. Cause I was watching all these YouTube videos. And
can you explain what shiny object syndrome is for them really fast?
Yeah. It's just like.
What is shiny object syndrome?
Shiny object syndrome is basically just seeing something, trying it, having one pitfall or one bad thing happen and be like, this isn't a me problem. It's a problem with this thing. This other thing won't have those problems. So I'm going to go do those things. And you try doing the new thing and you're like, oh, well, this is hard too. I'm going to try to do this thing now. And it's like, you never get better at the thing that you're doing because you're just trying to constantly do new things, and you can never build experience or improve or get better and learn from your mistakes if every time you make one, you just stop doing it and try something else. So.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. Okay. So you got shiny object syndrome. You were trying a lot of things. Take us through a timeline. Because at this point, like probably right before you, this was like all like a year and a half right before you finally broke into high ticket sales. Yeah. Take us through like a fast kind of like this, like visually, like what was it?
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, there was a blur of a lot of things. So I was door dashing because that's what was actually making me money.
And I remember one time, and no, there's no shade with door dashing. I door dash for a hot ass minute, and I definitely recommend it if you're like trying to make fast money, to at least have some cushion room. But like the first time that like we had first started dating, so I feel like it was like this is when Garrett was like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trading stocks, I'm making money. Do you want to go to California for our first month? Like I just sold some shoes, and like I sit in your car, shotgun. I like go to the back. I'm like, oh, there's a DoorDash like bag in here. Like, oh, do you DoorDash? And it was kind of like hidden. And you were like, oh, yeah, sometimes on my free time, like when I'm bored, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay. But in my head, I was like, I know you're DoorDashing and it's okay. I'm not judging you.
Yeah, I was like, I just like to listen to music and make money sometimes when I'm bored.
Yeah. So you played that off really well. But DoorDashing was something that you actually did to make money.
Totally, yeah. It's like I would remember being like, if I'm not doing anything and I'm just gonna sit on my couch, like I could just make $100. Like I could do enough rides to make $100, and like $100 a day is not bad, you know?
It's not.
No, my rent was $500 a month, so like that was a big deal. So yeah, DoorDash was like my like always consistent money no matter what thing, and it was just enjoyable for me. But as far as like the entrepreneurial things that I tried drop servicing, which is basically where like you sell someone on like a service and then you hire someone else to do the service for you. So I would start calling. I literally went on Google and I would look at people who didn't have websites but like had businesses, and I would try to call them. And my calls were so bad, but I was like, "Hey, I saw you don't have a website, but it looks like you have a really cool business. Like I live in Bloomington too. Like I actually wanted to go to your business, but I didn't know anything about it because there wasn't a website. So I had to drive there and see what it was for myself. I bet you lose a lot of business because you don't have a website. Like, can I make one for you? And I think I closed like maybe one person. And then I'd literally I closed one person, I remember. And then it was like a t-shirt company that like print t-shirts or something. And then I went to not Shopify, what's it called? Fiverr. I went to Fiverr and I was like, found the cheapest person that could make a website. And I had to make a website for like $100 or whatever. And then I made like $200 profit. But yeah, that was one of those things where I probably made like 20 actual phone calls to businesses. But I tried that. I tried Amazon FBA. So like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Hot Ones podcast where they like have the hot sauces, but I bought those hot sauces and I tried to sell them on Amazon FBA.
I remember,
Yeah.
I remember going to your place and you're like, this thing I'm doing, I'm going to sell hot sauce. And I'm like, okay. And it's like the hot sauce just stacked on your kitchen. I was like, okay. He's on to something. He's getting somewhere.
I had like
I was like, you go, babe, sell that hot sauce.
I had like hot sauce, Power Rangers, and like Lilo and Stitch like stuffed animals. And I was like, I'm about to make money.
This is before, and also like it was lack of exposure and lack of knowledge because like now you would have known, like you look at what is a competition, how many people are searching for this, like is it saturated, is it not saturated, like you were just like, this looks like something that like would sell, let me just like sell it.
Yeah, and that's how I met Zach. I called Zach and we talked for like 2 hours behind my apartment, and he was like putting me on game for Amazon, which was funny. So I tried that, and then through all this I was still like, anytime I made like, I had more than $500 in my bank account, I'm like, okay, I'm going to trade stocks and turn this into 2,000, and then I'd lose my money. But
you also tried selling. It was like a light. Like you.
Oh, there was another drop shipping store. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a drop shipping store, and it was like a little light, and it had to be like pitch black, and then the whole like room would light up with these like glistening things. Yep. You also try to sell like doggy clothes.
Santa Paws.
He created an LLC for Santa Paws.
I did.
Like little outfits for Christmas for dogs. And then I think when you were trying to start selling it, it was already like mid-December. So like that wouldn't have worked in January.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that I was able to like witness like all of them.
That's great. I forgot about Santa Paws.
Yeah.
So Santa Paws and GalaxyBedroom.com. Were two other drop shipping stores that I started. And like the reason those didn't work was there's so many moving pieces with like e-commerce. Like I have friends that have tons of success with drop shipping and e-commerce. Like it works, but for at the stage of entrepreneurship that I was in, I didn't realize how many moving pieces were involved. Like you have to, number one, make a website. You have to find the right product. You have to have a manufacturer that can make that product. You have to make sure logistics wise, like the shipping is fast enough to where people buy something, they get it fast. And the biggest piece of it is marketing. Like you have to drive thousands of people to your website to get them to buy something and then still be profitable through all of that. So I didn't know anything about marketing at all. And I couldn't run ads because my ad account got banned. So I was like trying to make TikToks, and I would make like,
Yes.
so we would literally, remember when we drove to the park and we put it in your car and we like plugged it in through the smoke thing?
Dude, where is that video?
Oh my God.
Where the heck is that video? We need to see that video. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was so awesome.
Yeah.
God.
So I did that. And like,
We share these stories as we stare at downtown Chicago and like the
Crazy.
ocean. Like,
crazy.
in hindsight, they were all meant to lead you to the next thing, but like you tried so much, and I think that also shows like perseverance, like
Yeah.
not giving up just because it's not working. And I think like when you just have to have that like muscle where it's like, this is what I want to do. It's just a matter of like what is going to work for me, because there's a lot of people that just miss the muscle because it's like, this means it doesn't work. No, it just means that like you have to keep going. Not that like you should completely give up on this feeling that you have of wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, totally. And like, back to what I said in the beginning too, on how like, I'm going to try this for a certain amount of days. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to quit. That's what I was doing. So I would be on step 3 of 10 to like make Galaxy Bedroom work. But hindsight, I posted 2 TikToks. If I wanted to make that work, I needed to post 10 TikToks a day and make great TikToks for that to work. Like, and I probably could have made money if I just had a TikTok that went viral. But I just posted literally 3 videos, and I'm like, well, drop shipping doesn't work. I got to go to the next business model. So
we were dating for 2 years before we moved to Miami, and like I want to say probably the full year before that, you were like really, really getting established in something. But before that, what I would love to touch on is now we all know the timeline of like you tried this, and like that last gap that you just told us happened like all in the same like few months because you were just like having shiny object syndrome. The biggest ones that stick out to me is you finally broke into, high ticket sales. You've done the first thing, and the reason that you got into that was because I was in network marketing at the time. There was this guy on Instagram that had a huge brand, and he was being a guest speaker for our network marketing company. And I was like, hey, I know you're really entrepreneurial. I think you'd be good at this. It's like sales. I don't know really what the details are of it because I couldn't grasp it at the time.
Right,
But I was like, reach out to him. And you ended up doing that. So I'd love for you to share like that experience. But mainly like that experience, which led you into going back to DoorDash, going back to working at a manufacturing company, and kind of like almost giving up, working at Olive Garden and almost giving up, and then finally breaking through and like finding the thing. And that all happened, I think, within the same like 7 months. So take us through that.
yeah, totally. And like one thing that did happen between those two, which is why I was interested in
the
in hopping
shoes.
on that, was the shoes, right?
Yeah.
So flipping shoes was something that I actually found some success with, and I would make like $2,000, like $3,000 a month, which when my expenses were $1,000 a month, I was like, this is like actually working.
Yeah.
Because I had so much perseverance because I dropped out of college, and my parents were kind of like, okay, like we're not going to help you with any money. So like if you drop out, and he'll just run out of money and then he'll go back to college.
And you guys, I was the type of person where I had always had this belief in my heart, like ever since I was little, because my parents were so big on like, go to college, go to college, go to college. That was so important to them that I said I would never date someone that didn't finish college or didn't go to college or didn't, whatever it was, because I associated people that didn't go or didn't finish with being lazy and like not having a work ethic. And I was there when he dropped out, and I remember being like, I have this belief, but like this person is not that. Like that's not him. He's dropping out for a reason. It's because he wants to make more money. He's so entrepreneurial spirited, and like I just knew that like he couldn't fail. Like there was gonna be no failing for whatever you did. So I was just fully supportive through all of it because I didn't actually have that much exposure into like what real success looked like either.
Right.
But I knew that like that wasn't going to make you a bum or anything like that. Like I knew that it was just a stepping stone to leave that. So I wanted to add that in.
And now we're engaged. Cool full circle moment. But yeah, with the shoe thing, so I would basically, long story short, like I would buy like 5 pairs of Yeezys at like $150 a pair, so $750. and then I'd sell them for like $220 a pair, and then I'd make like $70 on each, and I'd make $350 profit, right? So like that was my thing, is I would literally just get shoes from people for less. I'd buy like bulk or a really expensive pair of shoes at a discount, and then I'd post it on my Snapchat, and then I would sell them to people on my Snapchat. Like Snapchat was my thing. And I think because I did the drop shipping, where I kind of learned marketing a little bit, and I did some sales stuff, like all of those like micro skills that I kind of built through everything that I failed, like helped me with that. Be careful with the Celsius onto you. So I think some of those like micro skills just kind of helped me with that, and I made some success with it. But like I would meet in person with people, and they would come to buy one pair of shoes, and I'd have them buy 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. And it was kind of like, oh, this is like when I was selling supplements at the gym. It's kind of like that. So then she was like, hey, this guy's doing this like sales training thing. You should hop on the Zoom call. Like guests are like welcome. Like you should hop on. And I was like,
on my Zoom call, it was like,
yeah.
I was like, he's going to be a guest speaker for my network marketing company. You should come listen like next to me and see like how good he is at sales. Cause like, I think you'd learn from him.
Yeah. And like my mind frame was like, this will probably help me like sell more shoes. And then basically what this guy did, like hindsight, was he had a sales agency. So basically what a sales agency is there'll be different business owners that don't want to like manage their sales teams. So they'll go to the sales agency and say, hey, you hire all the salespeople, you manage all the salespeople, you just make sure that they're closing deals, and that's what you do. So that's what this guy did. And then he hired salespeople under a sales agency that would sell the stuff for all the different businesses that he worked with on his behalf. So I hopped on there, and he was like, yeah, he's like, some of my services are like $20,000. You know, I got my team, you know, selling them. So they get 10%. I'm like $2,000 if they close a deal. And I'm preparing the next day to drive 4 hours round trip to meet someone at a police station to sell an expensive pair of shoes. So that way I can make like $500. And I'm like, hold on. I don't have to drive 4 hours round trip, meet a sketchy stranger at a police station so I don't get robbed, just to make a couple $100. And then I'm going to spend like money on gas and I have to travel 4 hours. I was like, this is crazy, because I can just take a call. I'm like, this is like shoes, but on steroids, because it's so much easier. There's so many things I don't have to do that are like annoying. Like, holy shit, like this might be it. And I'm also learning like sales stuff, which will help me even if I do the shoes. So I just got obsessive with this dude. Like I looked up to him so much, and he would do daily Instagram lives. So I would hop on them like literally every single night. And that's, long story short, I ended up selling for his sales agency because I hopped on his Instagram live and I asked him for a sales job in front of hundreds of people because he had a lot of followers. And he was like, yeah, maybe, like, you know, you can interview with me or whatever, just shoot me a DM and my team will respond to you. I hopped on the interview and I landed the role. So that was like my first break into high ticket sales.
And we didn't know what high ticket sales was. I was in network marketing making literally no money. Like I was going broke in that thing. But we didn't understand the concept of high ticket sales. It was like, what is that? And when we found out that he like actually got a job with them, like I think he went through like an interview process too. We found out that this guy was located and based out of Toronto. And I just remember like telling you like, hey, if that's what you need to do, if you're moving to Toronto for this sales job and you're going to be able to make good money, like I'll support you and we'll just date long distance. Like, do you remember that? We literally didn't understand high ticket sales at all, to the point that like, he was like, yeah, we're based, a lot of these companies are in Canada and you're going to sell for a Canadian company. And you were like, okay, like we're prepared to move. What's the next step? Like you were so hungry, but it goes to show that like a lot of people actually don't understand what it is, because we had no concept of what it was either.
Clueless. I'm like, this dude has a Lambo and he's definitely a millionaire. I'm going to work for him. Like, I'll do whatever he's doing. So you
need me to move to Canada? I'm moving to Canada.
Yeah, I was like, Michelle, we might have to do long distance, but like, I'm gonna go make some money. Like we're gonna figure it out. So yeah, I started selling for him. And the craziest thing is like, this is how clueless I was about what high ticket sales even was. Cause that's definitely what I was doing, but I didn't know that. Like, I feel like this was 2021, like early 2021. There wasn't, at least to my knowledge, like a lot of videos.
No, there wasn't. It was brand new.
It
Like
was
he didn't
so
even
new.
say those words. Like I don't even know if he coined that term. Like who coined that term? I want to know.
I don't know. But yeah, I didn't know what it was. Like there wasn't any videos about it. I was just like, it's kind of like shoes, except like I'm just selling something like online instead of like a physical shoe. Like this is just
Like a
different.
service.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like what I was doing with like when I was calling business owners and selling them a website and giving it to someone else. Like it's similar to that. I was like, okay, cool. So I didn't even know the difference between appointment setting and closing. So like basically what I was getting was I'd get a Google sheet with like a name, an email, and a phone number. And these people were putting in their information because they were interested in what I was selling. But they didn't actually book a call to like speak with someone about buying it. And what an appointment setter does is they call those people that show a little bit of interest but don't actually book a call and ask them to book a call with someone else to actually buy the service after they have a longer conversation. I didn't know, and then the closers like have those booked in calls and they like close those deals. Setters make 5% commission, closers make 10% commission. So I didn't know that. And I don't think the person who hired me knew how clueless I was because I was just calling people and be like, hey, saw you put in your information. Yeah, it's $3,000. Like you want to buy it? And I was just calling people and they're like, no, like, no, I don't want to buy it. I'm like, oh, well, I thought you did because you put in your information.
So you were thinking that in hindsight, because you obviously didn't know like the difference between a setter and a closer, you were probably thinking that like all these people that you're calling, you have to close them in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Close them in 20 minutes. Like, do you want it or not? Yes or no? And then you move on. And you
Yeah.
probably like, because of the Wolf of Wall Street, like it wasn't stocks, but it was like, oh, this is what it is. It's like fast-paced sales, like exactly what it shows in that movie. I got to start calling people morning, night. I don't care.
My frame of reference for sales was The Wolf of Wall Street. And that's like the scene where he's like calling people and he's like, $50,000, you want to do it? Cool. And it was a total stranger. So I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
That's also my frame of reference. That's probably why I didn't get into sales for so long, because I was like, in that movie, it was all these douchebag guys, and I was like, I can't do that. It's not meant for me. Okay, anyways, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I don't know how long I was doing this. Like I'm talking a couple days, couple weeks, whatever, before they basically had one of their, shout out Joseph Zeta. What a man. I gotta call this dude. He was kind of like training me and like helping me because he was one of their better like closers. He was making like $15K a month. And he was like in office. I was remote, staying in the same town. And then he was coaching me and he's like, hey man, like call them, see if they're interested, qualify them a little bit, make sure they can afford it and they'd be a good fit for it. And then set them on a different call for like 30 minutes and then close them on that call. And I was like, oh, that's so much easier. Like I want to start doing that. And so like my first, and I was commission only. There's no salary or hourly or anything. It's like, if you close a deal, you make commission. If you don't, you don't. So my first 2 weeks, I made $0 and I was working like a lot. Like I remember waking up at like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., which was early for me at the time, and like calling people in the UK because it's like later in the day for them. And then I'd call until like 8 p.m. until, because the time zones are different, people in California, until I was literally waking them up out of bed and people were telling me to fuck off. And then I would stop calling people like 6 days a week because I had like $400 to my name. Like I was so broke and I had rent due and I was like, I have to make this work. And I want to impress this guy. So for the first like 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, I made no money. And then Joseph was like, hey, like, make it 2 separate calls. And then I actually closed my first couple deals. I was so happy about it. I ended up making $1,700 total my first month. which was crazy to me at the time. Like so crazy to me at the time. Like it felt like a lot of money.
It was. I mean, especially in that little town that we were living in, like shit, $700 in a month was a lot of money. So like 1,500 was a lot.
Yeah,
at the time.
Remember, I sold.
We were balling out. Like that's like, let's go have sushi for dinner because like this is amazing. That's like what that meant to us like back then.
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm
during that
never
stage of our
door
lives.
dashing again.
You were like, okay, no.
So yeah, long story short, I did that, and I didn't know. Again, like hindsight, they put me on like their worst possible client at that sales agency because they were like, this kid probably doesn't know what he's doing. Like, we're not going to put him on a big client. And then the second person they put me on with was Ty Lopez, which, you know, he was like a huge influencer at the time. That's when the like just sitting here in my garage ads were like kind of dying off, but they were still there. And people like knew who he was hopping on the calls and were interested in working with him. And I'm like, oh, this is way easier. And at that point, I built up, they just could tell I was hungry. So they would have calls just directly booked on my calendar. Like I was basically like a closer now. So I didn't have to call people and they would just book calls on my calendar. I think first month there, I didn't make that much money. Second month, I made like 4K. And through all that, I was just reading every single sales book I could, watching every sales YouTube video I could, like trying to do everything I can to learn from the people I was working with. I was doing, you know, role plays with the people at the sales agency with this dude, Daniel. I hope he's doing good. And yeah, that was kind of like my first building blocks there. And long story short, basically 4 months, I think, 3 or 4 months into being at that agency, I left because something weird happened. I don't know. Like I sold someone something and there was an issue with like them with their onboarding and stuff. And then he basically like found my Instagram, like the guy that I sold, and was like DMing me a bunch of crazy stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I got rubbed the wrong way. And I told the business owner about it and he's like, don't worry about it. Like we got it handled. And I'm like, you don't have it handled. So I ended up leaving that sales agency, which was so hard for me because I literally like thought that was the biggest opportunity of my entire life. And I was so scared to leave, but I'm like, something just felt off. So I left.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you left. In hindsight, like that's exactly what you needed to do. And it shows like your morals and your values that you weren't willing to stay somewhere that you didn't feel 100% in like what they were doing and like the results that they were providing for their clients, which I think is so important in high ticket sales, that you sell for a company that you truly believe in, their mission, their values, their services, and like their results. You went on, I think that was like a moment for you that was like really discouraging where, you know, I was watching you grind. I was watching you like work every single day and then it didn't work out. And I also like watch you during that time frame, like be exhausted. Like every time we'd be texting or I'd see you in person, you'd be like working all day long. 'Cause it was a grind. And you took a little bit of time off. I think I remember you were door dashing during that time and trying to figure out what was next for you. Eventually you hit a wall where you were like, I need to make like consistent money. And so you started to do research again. And that led you to working at a manufacturing company. Do you want to talk about that experience? And then we'll move on to Olive Garden and kind of close it out.
Yeah. So I left what I thought was the biggest opportunity of my life. And I went back to all my old ways of different entrepreneurial things, started losing money again. And it was a big rock bottom moment for me where I was like, I think I just need to get a job. Like, maybe I just need to get a job.
You started to feel like you needed to be more practical.
Yeah. Like, I had my parents in my ear. They're like, you should just get a job, dude. Like, it's not that deep. So I started working nights at a factory with Temptations dog and cat treats. Every time I see them, I get like PTSD because I would start working at like 11 p.m. and I'd get done at like 3 a.m. or some hours like that. And I'd drive like an hour there and like an hour back.
Because they told you it was going to be good money. They lied to your face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was some like ads from this like recruiting thing. And it was like, I got some text because I put in my information and it's like, make $1,000 a week. And I was like, I had a 4K month, like, at that last thing, like that was crazy to me. Like I'll just do that. And so I was like, okay, cool. And then I got there And my Lord, like the quality of people that I was working with, like terrified me, like really bad limiting beliefs, like just not good people to be around. And I worked there for like 3 or 4 nights, and then I was kind of like, hey, like everyone here making, $4K a month? And they're like, no, because you had to do all types of crazy stuff. Like if you were 1 minute late one day coming back from lunch, or 1 minute late, or
That's how you get trapped into being in the matrix. That's what they were doing. What it sounds like to me is that they picked the people that were most desperate to make money, and they just threw them in there and started brainwashing the fuck out of them.
Literally. Yeah.
And you were only a few days in. You had all this background experience to walk into that and like not have that goggle on where you were like, what the fuck is going on here, bro? What are you trying to fucking trick me into doing for the rest of my life? Like, ain't happening.
Oh, yeah. And like, we're literally on an assembly line, like packing dog treats. I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Did you feel like a dog? Like,
I felt like I don't know. I was just like,
you're telling me you're in line packing dog treats. Like, did you feel like a zombie? Did you feel like, and it was like also like night hours.
I felt like a robot. I'm like, there's all this machinery around me that's like automating every step of putting this together. And unfortunately, they couldn't find a machine that could do this. So a human had to. And it just like put it in here, zip. Like, that's it. Yeah. For like 5 hours. And I would,
Oh my God.
I would get on my phone and they're like, Garrett,
get off your phone.
You're holding up the line. Cause it doesn't work. If one person's off, it fucks up the whole thing.
Oh my
so
God.
I would this fucking manager hated me. I would get screamed at so much.
He'd just be watching you on the camera with his big belly. Garrett, I see you.
That dude
Get off
hated
your
his
phone.
life because everyone hates their life and they don't want to be there. And he has to So we go into a meeting 3 days in, and basically they're like, you guys aren't getting your bonuses because you were late. They just went down the whole chart of everyone who was like 1 minute late, and me included. And then they did the calculations, and I went up there to see how much I was going to make, and it was like $300 or something like that for like the week or like 2 week span of time. Yeah, it's crazy. So basically I got my first paycheck like a week or 2 weeks into it, and it was like $300. I'm like, well, fuck this. Like, I'm driving 2 hours round trip. I'm working nights. Like, I'm so dead. I hate these people, and I'm not making $1,000 a week like they said. So I quit that, and then I started working at Olive Garden, where I was like a waiter there.
Yeah. So what a good story. Not about me at all, but also like I remember me through all of that, just being so supportive. Like, shout out to me.
Literally,
Like,
you would stay up until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
and like cook me food. And once I got there, like,
I would feed you. I would touch your hair, put your ass to bed, cuddle you. Like, I was such a good girlfriend.
You were.
I just cared so much, and like I loved you so much, and like I was so supportive. And there was like no like ever like never like a thought of like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck this guy's on. It was like always like from the lens of like he's gonna figure it out. Like, he's got it. So that's really awesome. So what made you decide to go in and become a server? And then want to work at Olive Garden? Because that's a crazy story. I think Olive Garden was such an impactful story, like for you, for our relationship, for me. Like there were so many lessons in you being a server at Olive Garden that I thought were amazing. But like, yeah, tell us that like Olive Garden story.
I like the breadsticks.
That's probably why I started working at the company I was working at too. They
Yeah.
had some good ass fucking bread.
I was like, love the breadsticks. Like,
Where should I work? Where can I get free food at? Olive Garden breadsticks
I was literally
and
like,
soup.
I don't have that much money. I'm hungry. If I work at a restaurant, I could get some food.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm sure hindsight, I was like, and I think I was just like literally on Indeed, and I was just like jobs near me. Like, that's what I was doing. And then Olive Garden popped up, and I was like, okay, like waiters make tips. Like, that's kind of sales-ish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, free food. I fucking love Olive Garden food. Like, let's go. Like, this will be something to where like I can not work like 9 to 5 hours or fucking nights, and I can still like DoorDash or do something entrepreneurial when I'm not at the restaurant. And this is just like stacking my bank account stuff where I can do stuff in the other time. So that's what I did. I did that for a few months.
A long time. It was like a decent amount of time.
Less than 6 months for sure.
No.
No, less than 6 months for sure.
To me, it felt like you were there for like 8 months. Like a while. Like it felt like were you working there like during winter time?
I don't even know.
I felt like you were working there. Maybe it just felt like a long time, but it kind of felt like you were working there from like springtime until like mid Halloween time into November time, because I remember we threw a party and you had came after work and it was like fall time, dark already. So I can't remember how long you worked there, but to me it felt like you were there for like a while.
It could have been. I don't know. I honestly like was so embarrassed because I was like, I'm this entrepreneur guy, that I was working there. I have one picture.
I feel that I only have like one picture, and I think it's lost of when I was a host.
To anyone watching that is like, you feel like you have so much potential and you're doing things that you feel like don't align with you and like your potential, but you're still doing them, like all the fucking things I just mentioned. Like, take as many videos and as many pictures as possible. And if you don't want to show anyone, don't show anyone. But like,
they're going to be a part of your testimony one
as
day.
I'm sitting there, like looking at the whole Chicago skyline and like all of Lake Michigan and this beautiful place, like there's nothing more I would love to see than like videos of me talking and like working and like what was going through my head and like all of that. And I wish I documented more of that. That really upsets me. So like, I'm so clueless on my timeline because I took one picture at home.
You kind of blacked out through it because you were like embarrassed of showcasing that like this is what you were doing to make money at the time. That's how you were hustling.
Totally. And through all that, like I was reading books on like mindset and personal development and like all of that shit because I knew I'm like, this ain't it for me. Like this is a pivot point. But yeah, I did that.
I think the plan was that you were like, I think when you told me like I'm going to be a server at Olive Garden, how you explained it to me was like, I'm going to do it to make money. Like I really need to make money right now. And I've heard that you can make really good tips on the weekends. Like there's a lot of people in this town and I'm not going to stay here long term, but like I really, really need to make money. And like, you make a lot of money as a server. And that was how you framed it to me, like that whole experience.
Yeah, that probably was my mind state. It was just like, let me get 5K, 10K back. And then like, I'll use that money to like do something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember you told me a story of like you were talking to some people that were working there and they started telling you like, oh yeah, I mean, I've been here for years. Oh. And that was like the pretty pivotal moment for you too of like, I've been making good money. I'm getting really good at this. I know how to upsell wine. I know how to take home some fat tips every single weekend. Cause I started seeing you take home like a lot of money. Like you'd send me Snapchats and I'm like, damn, this guy is just making money. And I'm over here broke as fuck with my damn network marketing business. And I'm trying really hard to make work. What was that moment when you were at Olive Garden that you were like, I've made some good money and like I'm getting TF out of here?
Yeah. I mean, some of the workers there, like I was just like, oh, like, cause it's a college town. So like, oh, you go to ISU too? And they're like, oh, I mean, I did, but then I dropped out. And they're like, oh, dang, like, yeah, I finished. You're like, I have what's it called when it's 2 years more? Master's? Mm-hmm. They're like, I have a master's in biology. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing here? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I just, I finished my master's and I just been working here throughout college and it's honestly just so dope here. Like, I love it. Like, I like the people I work with. It's a vibe. I think I'm just going to like keep doing this. And I was like, okay. I talked to someone else and they're like, I got a bachelor's in business and I got a bachelor's in, whatever, like communications. And I have a bachelor's in like arts. And I'm like, you guys all have college degrees and like, you're still doing this? Like, it was just like, whoa, like people here who've been here for 4 or 5, 6 years, like they're not leaving. And I'm like, I could make $400 or $500 on a weekend. So I was like, I kind of see why people do this. And that kind of scared me. And then on top of that,
it scared you because why?
Because I'm like, this looks like people who stay here, and nothing against it, obviously, but like,
yeah, like everyone's in their own journey.
From what I personally wanted was to succeed as an entrepreneur and, make multi 6 figures a year. I see how people can get trapped in comfort and settle.
Yeah.
And I saw everyone that I worked with settling, and that terrified me because I'm like, cool for them, but this is not the life that I want to live. So
and in your perspective, with the lens that you were looking at life through, you saw what they were doing and you took it as them settling. In their perspective, and this is for anyone watching, that could have been the case for them too, where they were going through the same things that you were going through, or they could have just said, hey, this is really fulfilling and this is all that I want to be doing. And this money serves me well and I can do what I want outside of this. And like, I love this and this is exactly what I want. It just wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah.
It wasn't your heaven island. It wasn't your dream life. And that's okay if that is someone else's dream life. Everyone has different definitions. But you just knew that you staying there was you personally settling when there was something inside of you, intuition telling you, like, there's more for you out there. Keep going. Like, don't stay here.
Yeah, this is money I can use to make more money doing something else, basically. So yeah, and like I was pretty good. Like I would upsell people on wine. I would make everyone get desserts.
He was the top. I think you were the top performer at Olive Garden. Like you would, you would tell me that you would be at the top of the leaderboards. Like that you would be like, oh, Garrett sold the most wine tonight. Oh, Garrett this, Garrett that. Garrett made the most commissions. I remember that.
Yeah, I was usually like top 2.
Tell them the wine story. Like you figured out how to make more money as a server.
Yeah, so I figured out how to make a lot of money as a server when I was at Olive Garden because I realized I could make people spend way more money on their bill where like the percentage tip would be bigger if the amount was bigger if I got everyone to buy wine in like a bottle. So I would literally bring out 2 samples where I'd get like a white wine and like a red wine, and it was like our 2 best wines. And I'd set them down in front of a couple and be like, hey, like check out these samples. Like, let me know which one you guys like more. And like, oh, we don't really want wine. And I'm like, oh, I know this is a sample. And they're like, sure. And then they take a sip and they're like, damn, this white wine's really good. Like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's like a Pinot Grigio or something. I can't remember what it was. And they're like, oh my God, we have to do it. And like, okay, you guys could both do glasses, but honestly, like you get kind of taxed. It's like $8 each a glass and you can get a bottle for like 20. And they're like, done. Like, let's do a bottle. And I could get everyone to buy a bottle of wine. I'd get grandmas getting fucked up at lunch. And I'd make way more money because like that $20 is like a big deal. Like an Olive Garden meal's $20.
And they'd also be like loopy, like, oh, this guy knows our vibe. He knows exactly what we're on. He knew exactly what we needed tonight. I feel good. Big tip.
And when you get fucked up, you're also trying to smack some dessert.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So,
you broke the system over there.
Yeah. So I'd be like, hey, don't eat too much food. Like, I'll bring you leftover boxes because you got to get dessert. Like the fucking, what's it called? It's like a coffee cake thing. Damn, I can't remember, like toffee cake or some shit. I can't remember what it was, some Italian shit. I'd be like, you guys can't eat too much of this food because everyone gets too full and then they get so mad at me because I try to bring out dessert and they can't do it. So like, I'll bring you boxes, don't finish your meal. And they're like, okay. And then I'd bring them dessert and then they'd buy that too.
Wow.
And I'd give them a bunch of those like Olive Garden mints and then they'd give me a big tip because they're like, damn, he just gave me so many mints.
Salesperson, sales savage in the works.
Yeah, right?
What a story.
But the managers hated me, or didn't hate me, but I wouldn't do things by the books. Like they're like, hey, you can't do 2 samples or like whatever. But I'm like, I'm trying to make money and I'm trying to make you guys money. Like, I'm sorry I'm not following like the proper procedures, but like I sell more shit than anyone. So I think that was also part of the reason why I was like kind of ready to leave too. Cause I'm like, you're a business. You want to make money. I'm making you the most money and you're getting upset with me. Like, fuck you. So yeah, but I was a server, and then long story short, how we kind of bring it back to like today a little bit was my friend Jack called me, and we were running a podcast during this time. I was doing a podcast with Jack, and he called me, and he's like, dude, you've been at Olive Garden for like a bit. Like, you told me that you were going to do this to like save up a couple grand and then like get out. You're still here. Like, he's just like a smack in the face, like pep talk. He's like,
what a friend. You need friends like that.
The best friend. Like, I think that conversation on top of me feeling like shit was like the straw that broke the camel's back, where I'm like, because I felt a little bit of comfort and I zoomed out and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I was just selling for this multi-million-dollar, like a year, like agency. And like, so long story short, he was like, dude, like, you were making like, I had a $1,700 month, a $4K month, and I think I had like a $6K month. And that's why it was so hard for me to leave, was because I made a lot of money, or what it felt like at the time, obviously. And he was like, sales was working for you. Like, out of all the things that you did, you made the most money doing that. And just because you didn't like that one client that they put you on for that one business doesn't mean that you can't just sell for another business doing the same thing. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, why didn't I think of that? So like there was like a year gap of time between that last like high ticket sales job or whatever, and then like the next one, like 9 months to a year or something like that. So yeah, he connected me with a buddy who put me on to the high ticket sales gig. And like literally from there, I was like, oh, I'm back. Like, shout out Jack White. That conversation changed my life. Because
Shout out Jack White.
Shout out Jack White. Hell
Hashtag
yeah.
shout out Jack White.
That literally made me get my shit together, realize who I was, realize my potential, realize that like I did have 5K saved up and that's what I wanted out of it. And like, now it's time to get out. And then he connected me with a business that was needing, now hindsight, a high ticket closer. Still at this time, I didn't know what the fuck high ticket sales was. I was like, oh, that like sales thing where you sell stuff online. And then literally like month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, like my income just kept climbing and climbing. I sold a B2B offer originally and I was making like 6, 8K, 10K ish. I had one 10K month there. And then I pivoted to another offer, which was like a B2C, like finance offer. And that's where I had like 10, 20K, 30K months and stuff. So,
Wow. What a journey. And what a journey you just took us through. And in my perspective, like, I feel like I was able to imagine all these different stages of your life and like grasp them. It's always cool when we can like talk about them again. Hopefully you were able to catch some really good lessons and like all the stories that Garrett has been through. Obviously it led you to where it was always supposed to lead you and in the timing that it was supposed to lead you to, because I think that if you would have gone in too fast, maybe without all of those lessons, maybe it would have worked out. Maybe you would have not been able to move as fast as you did once you actually came into it, because you developed so many character skills, so many habit skills, so many discipline skills. Olive Garden taught you so many awesome lessons about sales, just like the other thing. Working at that manufacturing company showed you what you didn't want and what life would look like if you settled. So thank you so much for walking us through all of that. This is a really amazing podcast. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 to this exact same topic, and just keep this one specifically for your journey, because I think there's so many lessons to have been learned by your specific journey alone in this one. So thanks for walking us through that.
Awesome. Next podcast will be all about Michelle's story because she has a crazy story too.
Yeah.
So if you guys are watching, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Michelle and I are both going to post it.
And also the podcast channel.
We're going to post this on both. If you guys are listening to the audio, like subscribe to this as well. We can't wait to do more of these, and you have to hear Michelle's story. So you got to check hers out next.
We'll catch you guys later. Bye.